Welcome to the High Level Human Podcast, a production of the James McGee Show. With your host, James McGee. He pulls no punches, he's in your face, and he keeps it real. Join him for candid discussions about life, leadership, and living the life of a high level human.
Welcome back to the James McGee Show. I am your host. I am James McGee. I hope you're doing well this Sunday afternoon. I wanted to do a quick show on the assassination attempt of former President Donald Trump yesterday evening. I know a lot of people are commenting or doing commentary and giving opinions. So I want to be straight up with my purpose. I'm not going to, I'm not conspiracy theory. I'm not getting into the actual politics of it right now. Tuesday night, Two Finger Tuesday, Joe and Tom and I will get more into some opinions and our opinions on what got us here, the danger of some of the things that preceded this. But what I want to talk about is the actual operations of the security of these events, because I don't offer opinions on things that I don't know about, and I definitely don't know it all, and I don't know a lot about a lot of things. But this is something I do know about, and this is something I can speak very educated on. I'm also not one to try to qualify myself and try to talk about, back in the day and what I've done, but I am going to say I have a lot of experience in this. So I have participated in it throughout my career, 9 events of presidential or vice presidential visits. 6 of those was at the coordinating level, the leadership level of a local agency. Our agency, when a president, vice president, a candidate that was under Secret Service protection, our agency was the lead agency. 6 of those times, I was the lead person from our agency. So I can speak about that. And I want to give a perspective. I don't want to give a whole lot. I'm not going to give criticism. I'm going to give some concerns, some things that I think that are legitimate questions and questions that have to be asked. But what I want to do is give our listeners an overview of how this happens. So first off, I think it has been reported, and it's pretty well known, that local agencies, state police, municipalities, sheriff's office, when you have something like what happened yesterday, they are the majority of the security. The Secret Service is in charge, and I'm going to talk about them in a second. I would go out on a limb and say, then this is from personal experience, I'd say 80%. The actual event. Now, there's a whole lot that goes on behind the scenes and a whole lot of planning that we don't see, but the actual event, the actual security, 80% is done by non-Secret Service, non-federal law enforcement agencies. So before I get started, I also want to say that, and I've said this before, I've said this for years and years, the Secret Service is the absolute most professional agency, definitely the most professional and competent federal agency that I have ever worked with. Now, I worked with the Secret Service more than I worked with any other federal agency, but they are absolutely the most competent, most professional agency that I have ever worked with. And of course, that is on a field level. I've never worked with the directors, never worked with higher level. I've worked with some, some leadership in the Secret Service, but never in the high administrative levels. And those administrators, they change with presidents, which is natural, and that's just what happens. But they are top notch. So how this works is I'll back up a little bit. As far as President Trump, I was the local agency coordinator for 4 of President Trump visited my area 4 times. 1 time while he was running, 3 times while he was a sitting president. That's a lot. That's a lot. So I'll give a little breakdown. The first one was a political rally. He was running in 2016, and I was a coordinator then. So then a couple years later, he came for we're a big petrochemical industry here. He came for some petrochemical event. That was a big event. A lot of logistics in that. There was a lot of a real long motorcade. There was a lot in that. And then in 2020, he came during Hurricane Laura. Now that was a quick one. That was something quick. He came for a little bit. Now I was the coordinator. I ended up handing it off after a day because I was also the incident commander, one of the incident commanders of the hurricane. I handed it off to another commander. But then he also came for during the election in 2020. So those 4 times. I was also one of the coordinators. President Clinton came in 2008 when Hillary was trying to get the nomination against Barack Obama. He came here, and I was involved in that. I was also one of the coordinators in Vice President Dick Cheney came. That was probably in, I'd say, 05 or 06. But the 4 that I had the most, and I was the coordinator, sole coordinator. I had a lot of help. All I'm telling you is that I know the inner workings of this. Was the 4 visits of President Trump. So number one, I heard Candace Owens, who I have a lot of respect for. She didn't pose any conspiracy theories, but she had a really good point that for this to happen is totally. It just doesn't happen. It just can't happen. There's too much security. There's too many layers for this to happen. I am stunned. I'm shocked. But she gave an example that her and President Trump are friends. They have a good relationship. And she had laid an incident where her husband, it wasn't they didn't draw down. The Secret Service didn't draw down on him, but was very adamant and stopped him where he was. That's how serious this is. You can't get close to a president. So she's right. But when she was talking about it, what she was talking about, he was the sitting president. There's different levels. There's different levels of security because the Secret Service provides for all former presidents spouses, I believe. There's just a lot they provide for, but there's different levels. For a sitting president, it is totally different. And it also has to do with what the threat level. And I'm going to talk about that because I don't think you get any more threat level of a non-sitting president than Donald Trump. So that's something you have to understand also. So what happens when the Secret Service, so you have Washington, D.C., who, they contact a local field office of the Secret Service. Our closest office and who we dealt with was Baton Rouge field office, which they were great. They're wonderful. Loved working with them. Some competent leaders, competent agents. So that's who we worked with. So they would get the call. Then they would contact us and they would come pay us a visit. That was about 2 hours from us. They would come. So if they got notified, hey, in a week, the president's coming, they try to keep that pretty hush. They only meet with a few people, and it was me and some other leaders. They meet with our sheriff and our chiefs. We'd have an initial meeting. Then the next time, they would bring a few more people with them, and I would have the team the leadership team that I had put together. So we would meet with them, and then it just grew a little bit more. The actual agents from DC that are not, assigned to a local office, they don't arrive until probably 3 days, sometimes before 2, 3 days, and they do their dance. And there's so much that goes into it, and it would take me a really long time to really get into it. I'm just trying to give you an overview of how it happens. So then you break off into the sections. So you have, we would have somebody, you'd have an agent in charge, and we would have a local leader in charge. You have motorcade, you have SWAT, you have site security. Every site that that he's visiting, sometimes a president could go 2, 3 different places. Each airport, we'd have somebody assigned to the airport. Anywhere that he was going to be, there's a security contingency. So it's a really, really big deal. A lot of planning. It's unbelievable how much planning and how just the detail that goes into this. That's why I'm shocked that something like this happened. So you've got their counter assault team, which is top notch. They're snipers. They're just top notch. Something happened here, and I'm sure it's going to come out. But like I said, I want to give this overview of how this goes down. Then once it's game day, the president's coming in, or the vice president, or whoever. Everybody's got their piece. Everybody has. It's been rehearsed. It's been briefed. It is a well-oiled machine. So that's how local agencies get involved. And there's tons of meetings. There's tons of planning. This is not a hasty makeshift. Now, the actual sitting president, he can right now say, "Hey, let's go here," and they got to figure it out. They may say, "Hey, I want to go wherever." He's the president, man. He can do what the hell he wants. But these rallies and types, there's plenty of planning time for that. So I guarantee you it was very well planned out. And it's also in Pittsburgh. I have no reason to think that Pittsburgh Police Department and all the surrounding agencies are nothing but top notch, and they're nothing but professional. But there were some problems. There were some mistakes, some bad mistakes. But what I refuse to let happen without saying something. Yeah, there were some people that made some mistakes. But before we start crucifying the little man, the man on the ground, or any of these leaders that are in the field that are working their ass off and work 20 hours days for this event, let's look at the top. Is what I want to look at. There is no doubt. Now, sitting president is a total different thing. No matter who you're not going to get any more high profile of a non-sitting president than Donald Trump. But a sitting president, I mean, this guy's got the nuclear football, the nuclear codes. There's a whole different level of security that goes with that. But I would say, an event-wise, there's no more volatile of an event than Donald Trump. Were the adequate resources given from the top? I can't answer that. But that's the first thing that should be looked at. I would guess and say no right now. Just from what I can tell, I would say no, there's not. And that's not these men and women, especially the Secret Service, they have to go with what they are allocated. And let me tell you another thing about these local agencies. They don't get reimbursed. Some of these cities spend thousands, hundreds of thousands on security. There's no reimbursement plan by the federal government for presidential security. You just have to do it. So what we have to look at is the top. Did they recognize how volatile a Donald Trump rally is? Was there politics involved? Now, I'm not going to even entertain the conspiracy theories and that he was assassinated by the CIA. I'm not entertaining that, but I am going to entertain the fact that are they giving him adequate security or are they not because of politics? That's something that has to be that as a legitimate question. That's a legitimate question. And when you look at the top, you've got Mayorkas, however you pronounce his name, the Homeland Security Secretary, who is a complete and utter disaster. Look at the border. He is a disaster. That man should have been fired years ago. He should resign immediately because this happened under his watch. Don't start crucifying the little man and the man on the ground, Mayorkas. This is on you. And then next, the director of the Secret Service. This is on her. Did they recognize the resources? So let's look at the local agencies too. Even if they can provide resources, sometimes I can speak personally on this. You're just sticking a warm body there. It may not be the best person that you have because you just have. They come in and say, "Hey, we're going to need 20 guys, 100 guys. We need 150." We provided locally. We have provided 150 men and women for presidential visit details. That's how big this is. Maybe more than that. That's how big this is that people have to realize. So, what about some of these places that don't have that? So I'll get into some of the details and why I'm saying that. The shooter, which I never say their names, they don't get publicity on this show. The shooter, from reports, and this is still early, so if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. This is what's out there right now by the Associated Press. I can't believe I'm actually going to quote the press, but this man was able to climb on top of a building 140 yards away and set up. There are reports that, well, it's more than reports, I've seen video on it, where people in the crowd saw him and was yelling that he had a gun and he was climbing on a roof. I just can't fathom that he was able to get on that roof. I know how these things are playing out. Where was the air support? There's just so many questions that need to be answered. And these snipers, I'm going to tell you, the counter snipers for the Secret Service, now from what I understand, there were 4 teams, 2 local and 2 Secret Service. I don't know if 4 was adequate. I can't answer that. I don't know all the angles they were having to cover. But I can tell you that the Secret Service counter snipers, they don't get any better than that. And I also guarantee you, if Pittsburgh police snipers, they put their best. They're going to put their best snipers. I don't know where the failure was, but there was a failure. I don't know where the failure was in that. There's also reports that a police officer, non-Secret Service, was told, and he climbs up a ladder and confronts the shooter. The shooter points rifle at him. He retreats, and then he starts firing on President Trump. So this officer, he is man, he's gonna have a lot of questions to answer. But before we condemn him, unless you've had a rifle pointed at you, don't condemn him. I'm not. Hey, when you sign up, you put that gun on, and this is a presidential detail, and he's gonna shoot into a crowd, shoot a president, and you got to take him out. But what we also have to look at too, from what the reports that I read, was as soon as he was confronted by the officer, he started firing the president. Well, maybe that officer did save the president's life. Maybe he disrupted him. Maybe he was just zoned in on him, had him in his bullseye. And I use the word bullseye. I'll cover that Tuesday over something that President Biden said. Had him in his bullseye, this officer disrupts it, and then he hastily shoots and doesn't and just point. So he doesn't really get him in his sights. So he might have saved the president's life. So let's not condemn this young officer. He's going to have to answer to it, and he's going to have to live with that the rest of his life. So people died. People died. But before we start condemning and start criticizing the snipers and the perimeter officers, I'll tell you that there's a lot of criticism of some of the tactics that some of the female Secret Service agents used when they were covering him. Man, get out of that. Unless you've been there, get out of that. I think they did. Man, it's you can train and train and train, and they did resort. I could tell they resorted to their training. But still, man, the real life thing. I've been involved in those things. I've been involved in shootings. The real life things. The real life. It's just different. And unless you've been shot at and you're having to throw your life in front of somebody else, don't criticize them. What we have to start looking at is the leaders and the resources. Are the resources adequate? Or are you just throwing warm bodies in there because you just need 150 guys, ladies? Is that what you're doing? Or where are the resources of the Secret Service, the trained agents? Now, another issue is big issue is going to be communication. Now, the fact that people in the crowd saw this shooter, reported it, and it was not communicated back, and then to be able to get the president off of the stage, that's a big failure. So where did that failure go? Was it a communication issue? Did were they all on the same frequencies? Did they have to contact somebody to contact somebody to contact somebody to let the people in the front know, get the president the hell out of there? So that's an issue you have to look at. That more than any issue to me, it's a communication failure. The fact that he was able to climb on the roof is a failure, big failure. The fact that he was confronted and wasn't taken out is a failure. But there was plenty time to communicate that. So where was that failure? But I'm gonna go back to it. I wasn't there. I'm not Monday quarterbacking them. I've been in those situations. I've been that person who's in that leadership role and in that small circle of decision makers and making sure that all that stuff is done. And I feel for them right now. I really do. Because that's a big burden. But more than anything, our focus needs to be on two people: the Secretary of Homeland Security and the Director of the Secret Service. Those two right there. Right there. They should both resign, or they should both be terminated. And I'll get more into that Tuesday with Joe and Tom about Biden hasn't fired anybody. He doesn't fire anybody, and this can be a result. Marcus should have been fired a long time ago. So I hope that you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I wanted to just do something short and give a perspective. I have a unique perspective because of my experience and because of what, man, that was some great times that I was able to be in those positions. So I want to give that perspective. Tuesday, we'll have a lot more information, and you can damn sure count on Joe and Tom and I will break this down. Everything that we know, we will break this down Tuesday night at Two Finger Tuesday. Until then, McGee is